Okay, so of course, the first thing I'm going to do is to go to Blackfire.io. If you haven't already subscribed yet, at least for a free account, you will need to sign up. For now, you can sign up with one of those 3 providers only. Symphony Connect is the replacement for login passwords. You can also use GitHub and Google. So I already have an account. So I will connect through Symphony Connect. All right. And okay. So as you can see, I didn't start my my trial yet. So what this is exactly what I want to do. So for this, in order to create to get started, I will need at least to create an organization for that, because by default on a hack account, you only have a personal account, so you can only profile local websites, local web apps, and local CLI commands. But for the premium accounts, it's based on organizations and environments. So an organization is pretty much like on GitHub. When you're part of an organization on GitHub, where you have several projects. So let's create one. We'll have a name, so I will name it Blackfire Webinar. Okay, oh, number of employees. Let's say I'm alone here. And other. All right. So now that I have my organization, I'm able to start the premium trial. So this is what we're going to do. For that, we will have to create environment then. So first, let's start the premium trial. All right. We will be able to get our credentials and profile apps. You can easily follow this, whatever is written here. As for the extension, I have my Firefox extension here. And I already have everything installed, so I will assume that you already followed the getting started documentation. This trial works for PHP and Python, and also for Go. So, all right, now let's go back to the dashboard. You can see that we have our ongoing trial. So first thing that you need to understand is that as soon as you are on premium or in enterprise, everything is linked to your organization. The profiler plan will, if you finally opt for the profile plan, is personal account and will be to your linked to your personal profile. So basically, what it does mean is that if you're on a profiler plan, you will have your account details and billing details on your personal settings, while for premium and enterprise, everything will be at the organization level. So here in settings, you will find everything here, like billing. So everything will be, well, you will be able to find everything here, right? We also provide add-ons like for Magento, debug, quality, security. They are available for Provider Premium and Enterprise editions, but unfortunately, we don't provide a trial for them. So sorry about that. An organization may have different collaborators and different environments. For Premium, you have one environment by default and 3 users quota. Of course, after that, after your trial, if you want to enlarge your the number of users, it's of course possible at when you will subscribe to on the subscription page. Sorry, same for environments. So what is an environment? So let's have a quick look at the documentation about environments. Okay. So an environment is, I made the comparison with the GitHub about organizations. This follows the same kind of comparison with environments and projects, let's say. It's a bit more flexible though. So because it's a collaborative workspace, you can also invite collaborators inside environments. So you can invite them in the organization and in environments, in specific environments. It's also silo for testing, and you will be able to plug all your workflow tools like CI and CD, right? Of course, you will get your server credentials here. As it comes to getting it up and running, just follow this documentation, which is a bit interactive for your system. If you have any issue, don't feel free to reply to Christoph here, right? And to say hello and ask your questions. Well, I will answer myself as well. All right. So now let's create an environment, because otherwise we won't be able to add any app here. So create, and we will call it Blackfire Playground. I won't set it. Well, yes, we will set it as an environment, a development environment for now, and the time zone. Okay, create environment. Okay, once you created your environment, it the GUI gives you your server ID and server token. So this ID will replace. You will have to replace your personal IDs and token in the agent by these ones. So this is exactly what we're going to do. Let's go here and say Blackfire agents register. Okay, my server ID is this, and my server token is that. Okay, now we restart it. Brew services, restart Blackfire agent. Okay, while it's restarting, we're going back here. So, okay, we can now view our environments, and we have 3 tabs. As a workspace, it's interesting here because all the profiles that your team of developers is going to do will be displayed here. So as a team, it can be used to give a profile link to a colleague, for instance, and to pair analyze, for instance. You also have a builds tab that we will cover a bit later, and the settings tab where you can add new members, and you will find also the server credentials if in case of if you didn't copy them. Okay. So now that it's successfully restarted, I'm using Symphony Cloud. So what I'm going to do is to create a new environment for Symphony Cloud based on my develop branch. As you can see in my project here, I have a Symphony Cloud.yaml file where I installed the Blackfire extension. So this is tightly integrated with Symphony Cloud and any platform SH variants. So everything here is Symphony Cloud specific, and it's only the YAML file that has been generated by the Symphony command. So there's the only thing I added was this 3 extensions. So what I'm going to do now is to create a new environment. So if I do Symphony and create premium trial webinar, here I'm doing 2 things. First, Symphony CLI will create a new branch, and will so that's what you can see here, and create a new environment so that we can deploy our code on the Symphony Cloud based on this branch. So everything is inherited from the develop branch, just like you would do in Git, and based on the parent environment here, which is the develop environment, and the code in your new branch will be deployed automatically. This is why it's a bit long, because it's configuring and deploying everything. Okay, so we can see now that we have root here where our application is deployed. So let's click on that. So this is a development environment, Symphony Cloud development environment. So it's they are a bit slow. Here it's compiling everything, so that's why it's a bit slow as hell. In the meantime, let's check what we have. So Symphony SSH. So we will be able to connect to SSH on the environment, and we can see that we have. Oh, I made a mistake here in the php.ini. Yes. We have a PHP 742, and if I do a php-m, we will be able to see the Blackfire extension, the APCU extension, and upcache, which it doesn't appear here. Yeah, Zend upcache, which I added in the Symphony Cloud channel. So let's see if it's, yes, everything is compiled. So you can see that it's a quite simple Symphony demo application. Sorry, it's written in French, by the way. I can switch to English, but anyway, yes. And all right, I have everything I need. My application is deployed. So now what I want to do is to do a simple profile. Since I already have my my credentials, that should be fine. Okay. All right. So that now we can see. So this is something common for if you already have had experienced Blackfire in the past. main difference is that you will have different dimensions here that you didn't have before. In the hack plan, you only have the wall time and the memory dimensions. Now you have input-output, CPU, network, and also the web services and SQL queries, and also the timeline. So let's have a look at it. Oh, of course. Sorry about that. Because I didn't do my homework and I didn't configure my Symphony Cloud instance. So configuration, and I want to configure my environments with my Blackfire playground environment. It was not the correct one. So I will copy this and paste it there. Okay, now it tells me to trigger a rebuild via Symfony redeploy. We need to wait for it before running any profile again. Yes, okay. I think it's the same. I will copy it again and paste it here. No, this is not. Here it is. Okay, so let's run a new profile again. Now that it doesn't have anything. All right. Symfony SSH. Of course it doesn't. So, Christoph?
Yes?
So, we have an issue there. So maybe...
That's the kind of usual issue when you need to call to the support. So I
Yes.
see a ping, but that was 2 hours ago on those credentials. So most likely there is a misconfiguration here. The error message that we have seen on the home screen can usually be because of several different kinds of issues. It's a rather generic error message that basically says that Blackfire from our servers, we haven't been able to reach out to your servers or to find the appropriate server credentials so that you are authorized to profile. So this can be due to as I said, many different reasons. It can be because you misconfigured the server credentials, which is probably something that you should have a look at if you can check the different variables that are on Symphony Cloud, so we can make sure it's the right values. Else than that, and it's probably not going to be the case for our demo right here, it can also be due to misconfiguration of a CDN, a varnish proxy, or basically anything that will stand in the way between the Blackfire servers and your machines. For instance, in the case of varnish, you would need to configure a bypass so that basically when Blackfire triggers a profile, it's about playing again the same HTTP request, for instance, than when you would load a page. So if you profile that page, we trigger the HTTP request again with additional Blackfire specific headers. So if we hit a varnish, for instance, then the request is going to stop on varnish, right? Except if you tell varnish, okay, for any request that comes in with a Blackfire header, then please let it through to reach out to the servers. And that's how we will actually then be able to trigger the profile on the machine and get the measurements. So that's also something that Jean might not have said yet, but an important part of Blackfire is that it can be used on any machine, so development, staging, even CI/CD machines, and production. And because of how we take the measurements, like I explained, there will be no overhead whatsoever for end users. Again, the only requests that will be profiled and for which Blackfire will show an overhead will be the requests that you as a developer are going to trigger. So that's quite the opposite from what happens, for instance, with an APM, which would instrument real end user requests and therefore add overhead on those requests. In the meantime, ta-da! Go ahead, Jerome.
Yes, so thank you, Christophe. So exactly, this is usually the way, and this is a very common issue. So this issue can occur when you misconfigure your environment. You mix up several things. This is exactly what happens. So because I have my local credentials and I also have my server credentials, my Symphony Cloud credentials, and there was a mismatch between my accounts and the credential I set. The credentials was for I didn't set the right server credentials to the Symphony Cloud setup. So now that it's fixed, I have access to all the nice things that Blackfire Premium can offer. So the first one, which is one of the most important, is the timeline. You're most likely familiar with the call graph that we will see again in a minute. Now the difference with the timeline is that you will be able to see the behavior of your application, but on a timely basis. So this is a bit like you're familiar with the Symfony web toolbar, but in a much more developed way. You have very precise insights from within your application, how it runs, because everything comes from the PHP engine itself. So here, every block here represents a function call over time. And you also have this blue graph in the background showing the memory increase. So this is, thanks to this blue graph, you will be able to spot memory leaks that makes your application slow. This is a very important tool. You can also then zoom in this, for instance, and see that here that you're using ENTL date formatter. So this is PHP internal, but it's in green, like it appears as a threshold, meaning that it worth your attention. Maybe it might worth your attention. This is something that that is spotted by Blackfire itself. And then you can maybe see what is the culprit here, it's a twig localized state filter, which is called in the base.html.twig. As an addition, you will also have a real code stack that you will be able to copy paste in order to look for in your code. I want to know exactly where it comes from. Here you have all the timeline metrics. I urge you to have a look at them because they're very powerful. You can define your own, and you have, of course, a lot of built-in ones. But it takes all its power when you can define your own timeline metrics here. Then let's go back to the call graph that you're used to. You're used to it if if you already used Blackfire. So I won't cover it so much because we're already late on this, but you can see that every node here is represents a function call. It's not timely based. It just represents the call graph, the call tree, the function call tree, and the most costly methods of function calls that are represented here. So you can browse the call graph from the top to the bottom and see and follow the hot path here. So it's in pink, but if you switch to another dimension, you will see here from IO perspective, and it changes the color. So here you will be able to have a look at a different dimension of your application, input-output oriented. So here you will most likely see everything that is linked to the database, for instance, so database calls, the memcached calls, the web service, internal web services calls, etc., which is very helpful, and also all the file system calls. So it's a very nice tool for analyzing. Same for CPU. Here, everything here is good. Yeah, it's from comes from Monolog. The CPU represents all your function calls in calculation, CPU calculation perspective. So it's important if you have like walkers, for instance, and that are consuming a lot of CPU. Same for memory that you already had. Here we don't have any network, but we also have HTTP requests and SQL requests. That's strange. We don't have any. Maybe we have we had cache before. So this is the basic things that you will have in any plan, right? Another very nice thing here that you will have in any plan as well is, I mean, any paid plan, is the recommendation tab. The recommendation tab here will spot you, will give you some advice that may not be interesting for you, but still, here, for instance, it says that my PHP version has non-security issues. Okay, so I should upgrade. I may not be aware of that, so I can see that Platform.sh, the PHP version of Platform.sh, has non-security issues, and so maybe I should contact Symphony Cloud to get more up-to-date boxes, and same for the garbage collection. And if you don't have recommendations, it's not bad. It's not that you don't have the feature. It's just that you already did a good job at optimizing your application already. So that's generally a good sign. You will have also assertions and propagation, which are different things. I hope we'll have time to cover this. Because you need here to set up a Blackfire.yml file in order to enable automated performance tests. So this is the next thing I wanted to show you about the builds, because all the thing about Blackfire Premium and Enterprise is that you can automate everything. So if I go here, I directly switch to the builds tab, and as I showed, it was empty before. My profiles tab is now filled with every profile that have been made by my coworkers and me. In the builds here, I already set up a few, but you are able to trigger to have builds that run periodically. What is a build then? A build is a scenario driven by scenarios that you can do in two ways. You can either use the tested URLs. So tested URLs is basically, if you want to add one, is if I want to test my let's say I want to test this blog post. Okay, so I will copy the URI, so without the domain, which is already configured here, and I will paste them here, and I will add more and more, then save. The endpoints that is already configured here is the domain, the base domain, if you to contact your website. Because when you're doing a build and periodic builds, the Blackfire servers will, on a timely basis, send requests to your application. So you need to give Blackfire an endpoint to reach your application. If this, if you don't, your domain isn't public, then you can set them up here with the advanced settings. So by setting periodic builds, you can set a frequency, let's say every hour or every 6 hours, every 12 hours. And in advanced settings, you may disable SSL certificates verification, forcing an IP. So for example, if you don't have, you only have a dev domain, or that it's internal to your network, then you force the IP here. You may also add HTTP username and passwords. So how does it look? So here I already have a Blackfire.yml that I'm going to show you. No, I don't have. It's you can actually generate it by yourself. So if I do a Blackfire bootstrap tests, it creates for me a Blackfire.yml file. And here in this YAML file, I have very basic tests. So this kind of test with a label, with a path, saying that it's only for the homepage here, but I can add like /star, meaning that it will cover every pages, a bit like you would do in your security.yml file in Symphony. And you will add some assertions. So what exactly is all this about? Then you only have to go to the documentation about it, and it's all about tests, writing tests. So in those tests, you can there's all description about it, about saying that you can run tests for webpath and also tests for commands, also for both. It can work for both. The tests are always based on a context and also on assertions, just like you would do in a PHP units test. You would add some assertion. You will assert that the number of SQL queries is equal to 0, or that the peak memory is inferior to 10 megabytes, for instance. You would do exactly the same here. And then about metrics. I told you about metrics a bit earlier. So let's have a look at it on the reference guide. So metrics does also have the different dimensions that we already covered, the number of calls, the wall time, the CPU time, the memory, the network, the IO, and so on. You have a lot of built-in metrics that you can base your tests on, also for Magento, and you can define your own. So you can base everything like this, every test on that. In the Blackfire.YAML that has been generated, you also have this scenario part. So a scenario is a pack of steps that you will say that you will tell Blackfire player that is used. It's a HTTP client, Blackfire player, which is open source, and we use it for our builds. So you will give it a scenario and say, okay, visit this URL and this other URL and this other URL. It's a bit like adding URLs in your, like I showed you before. So here, in the tested URLs, except that you have full control on it. You have full control on how the HTTP client is supposed to behave, and you will be able also to use other HTTP methods than GET. You will be able to post forms. You'll be able to do head queries and stuff like that. So everything like here is very powerful and will help you to find out if there are regressions between different builds. Maybe when you have a lot of traffic pressure on your website, you will have less performance. So these builds will help you understand why you do have bad performance. Here we can see that all my builds are red. So if I go there, I can find out why. Okay, actually my wall time was above 200 milliseconds. So this is most likely because actually I have my Symphony Cloud's dev environment, which is bad, have bad performance. Okay, so I need to fix my tests or fix my code. I can see my profile, the profile on the homepage, and see what's going on, what was slow in there. And you also have the assertions here. So this is once you start using these tests, the Blackfire.YAML test with assertions, which are part of the premium plan, and enterprise plan, then you will have a lot of power in your hands, because you will be able to automate everything. On premium, you can only do periodic builds, but starting in enterprise, you will be able to trigger some builds with so that you will be able to integrate your CI system, for instance, in the loop. So you would be able to validate pull requests, for instance. So I think I showed you very quickly what premium is all about, and also how to use the support with the mix, the issue I had in the meantime, which is a good thing actually, because this is, as I told you, a very common issue. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.